The anger you're holding onto is only hurting you. A complete guide to understanding, processing, and releasing the resentment that's consuming your life. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Attributed to Gandhi. For everyone who has been wronged, betrayed, or deeply hurt, and is still paying the price. Your anger was once justified. Now it is a choice. Preface. The weight of resentment. There is a particular kind of heaviness that comes from holding on to anger. It is not the sharp, acute pain of grief. It is not the sharp sting of fresh hurt. It is a dull, pervasive heaviness that you carry with you everywhere, that settles into your bones, that becomes so familiar that you stop noticing it is there, until something reminds you, and you feel the weight of it all over again. This heaviness is what happens when anger transforms into resentment. When the original hurt is not processed or released, it does not fade. It transforms. It becomes a part of your internal world. It shapes how you see others, how you expect to be treated, how you move through your life. And here is the cruel irony that is the subject of this book. This anger that you have been carrying, this resentment that feels so justified, this sense of having been wronged that you hold so close, all of it is hurting primarily one person. And that person is you. The person who wronged you has likely moved on. They may not even think of you or what they did. They have not been suffering the consequences of their actions, you have. You have been suffering the consequences of holding onto your anger about their actions. This is a difficult truth to face. Because your anger feels justified. Because what was done to you was real, and it was wrong, and you have every right to be angry about it. All of that is true. And also true is this. Holding on to that anger is not punishing the person who hurt you. It is only hurting you. This book is about understanding that distinction. It is about understanding what anger actually is, how it transforms into resentment, what that resentment costs you, and most importantly, what becomes possible when you finally release it. Not because what happened was okay. Not because the person who hurt you deserves forgiveness. But because you deserve to be free. Freedom from resentment does not mean that what happened was right. It means you stop letting it dictate the rest of your life. Introduction. The truth about holding anger. Imagine that someone hands you a glass of poison and says, "Hold this. Do not put it down. Keep it with you wherever you go." You would refuse. You would say, "That is crazy. Why would I do that?" And yet, this is exactly what you do when you hold on to anger. You carry the poison of resentment with you, expecting that somehow it will harm the person who gave it to you. Meanwhile, the poison is eating away at you. The metaphor is apt because resentment is literally toxic. When you hold on to anger, your body remains in a state of chronic stress activation. Your nervous system is flooded with stress hormones. Your immune system is suppressed. Your cardiovascular system is strained. You are literally poisoning yourself. But the physical costs are only part of the story. The psychological costs are equally significant. Resentment narrows your perspective. It closes your heart. It makes you cynical about people and relationships. It prevents you from being present in your life because you are too busy being stuck in the past. It prevents you from trusting others because you have been hurt. It prevents you from being fully alive because you are too busy being angry about what happened. And here is what many people do not understand. None of this is happening to the person who wronged you. All of this suffering is yours. You are the one who is suffering. And you are the one who can stop. What this book is about. This book is not a treatise on anger as an emotion. Anger, in its acute form, serves important functions. It provides energy. It can motivate you to protect yourself or change a situation that is genuinely harmful. The problem is not anger itself. The problem is chronic anger. Anger that persists long after the situation that triggered it. Anger that has transformed into resentment and bitterness. Anger that you are holding on to like it is somehow serving you. This book is about understanding that holding on to anger is not serving you. It never has been. It only feels like it is. It feels like holding the anger is keeping you safe, or keeping you right, or keeping the person who hurt you accountable. But none of that is actually happening. What is actually happening is that you are hurting yourself. The goal of this book is not to convince you that your anger is not justified. If you were wronged, and your anger is justified. The goal is to help you see that your continued anger is a choice you are making, and that this choice is harming you, and that there is another choice available to you. The path from resentment to freedom is not easy. It requires courage to face the hurt beneath the anger. It requires honesty about how the anger has been running your life. It requires a willingness to let go of something that has become part of your identity. But on the other side of that path is freedom. Freedom to be fully alive, freedom to trust and love, freedom to move forward with your life. That is what this book is about. That is what awaits you. Chapter 1. Understanding what anger really is. Before we can understand what goes wrong when anger becomes resentment, we need to understand what anger actually is. And anger is more complex than most people realize. The function of anger. Anger is an emotion that evolved for a purpose. It is designed to help you respond to threats or violations. When you are wronged, when your boundaries are violated, when you feel disrespected, anger arises. The anger provides energy and motivation to respond to the violation. In this acute form, anger can be functional. It can motivate you to leave a situation that is harmful. It can motivate you to stand up for yourself. It can provide the energy and assertiveness needed to address a genuine problem. A person who never gets angry is often a person who allows others to walk all over them. The problem is not anger. The problem is what happens when that acute anger does not get resolved. When you do not address the violation, when you do not leave the harmful situation, when you do not stand up for yourself and then move forward, the anger persists. It transforms. It becomes resentment. The structure of anger. Anger, as a complete experience, has several layers. At the surface is the feeling of anger itself, the physiological activation, the intense emotion. Beneath that is usually hurt, shame, or fear. And beneath that is usually an unmet need or violated boundary. Most people only relate to the surface layer, the feeling of anger. They feel the anger and they respond to the anger. They either act it out aggressively, or they suppress it and keep it bottled up. Very few people go deeper to understand what the anger is actually about. When you do go deeper, you often find hurt. Someone said something that made you feel small. Someone broke a promise and made you feel unimportant. Someone treated you in a way that made you feel unworthy. The anger is not really about what they did, in a sense. The anger is about the hurt that their action caused. Going even deeper, beneath the hurt, you often find shame. You feel ashamed that you were treated that way. You feel ashamed that you were not enough to be treated better. You feel ashamed that you trusted someone who betrayed that trust. And beneath even that, you often find fear. You are afraid that if you let go of the anger, the hurt will overwhelm you. You are afraid that without the anger, you will be vulnerable. You are afraid that if you forgive, you will be hurt again. Anger versus resentment. There is an important distinction between acute anger and chronic resentment. Acute anger is a response to something that just happened. You are wronged, you feel the anger, and then the anger either dissipates as the situation is resolved, or it remains as you continue to engage with the wrong. Resentment, by contrast, is anger that has calcified. It has become fixed. It is no longer a response to something happening. It is a permanent stance you are taking toward the person who wronged you and toward the world. It becomes part of your identity. You are the person who was wronged. You are the victim. You are the one who was right and they are the one who was wrong. Acute anger can be metabolized. You can feel it, express it, and release it. But resentment cannot be metabolized in the same way, because you have decided not to release it. You have decided that holding it is important. You have given it meaning. And that decision is what locks it in place. Chapter 2. How anger transforms into resentment. Resentment does not begin as resentment. It begins as hurt or anger, and then it is transformed through a specific process. Understanding this process is key to understanding how to reverse it. The rumination loop. The first step in the transformation from anger to resentment is rumination. After something happens that makes you angry, your mind goes round and round about it. You replay the incident. You think about all the ways it was wrong. You imagine conversations where you tell the person exactly what you think of them. You think about how you should have responded, what you should have said, what you should have done. This rumination feels productive. It feels like you are working through the anger, like you are preparing yourself for justice, like you are keeping the issue alive so it does not get forgotten. But what rumination actually does is reinforce the anger and the hurt. Each time you replay the incident, your nervous system responds as though the incident is happening right now. Each time you imagine a confrontation, your body tenses as though you are in confrontation. The rumination is intensifying the very emotion you are trying to work through. The narrative consolidation. As the rumination continues, the experience begins to consolidate into a narrative. You tell the story of what happened to others. You refine the story. You emphasize certain details and leave out others. You cast yourself as the victim and the other person as the villain. And gradually, the story becomes fixed. This is the truth about what happened. This is who the person is. This is who I am. The problem with narrative consolidation is that it freezes everything in place. The story becomes identity. Your identity becomes the person who was wronged. The other person's identity becomes the person who wronged you. And these identities do not change, because you keep reinforcing them by telling the story again and again. The meaning making. As the narrative becomes fixed, it begins to gather meaning. The wrong that was done to you is no longer just something that happened. It becomes evidence of something deeper. It becomes evidence that you are unworthy, or that people cannot be trusted, or that the world is unfair, or that you deserve better and have been cheated. The original hurt becomes attached to larger beliefs about yourself and the world. This meaning-making process is very dangerous, because it generalizes the specific hurt to your entire understanding of reality. One person betrayed your trust, and now you believe that no one can be trusted. One person treated you disrespectfully, and now you believe that you are fundamentally disrespectable. One unfair event happened, and now you believe that the world is fundamentally unfair. The original hurt has become a lens through which you interpret everything. The identity consolidation. Finally, and this is the critical step, the resentment becomes identity. You do not just feel angry about what happened. You are the angry person. You are the victim. You are the person who was wronged. And this identity, once formed, becomes very stable. Why? Because your identity is reinforced by how you see the world and how the world responds to you. Once you have the identity of the victim, you interpret everything through that lens. You notice when you are being treated unfairly and overlook when you are being treated well, because the unfair treatment confirms your identity and the fair treatment is anomalous. Moreover, the victim identity often comes with a kind of power. People feel sympathetic to victims. You can demand things from others based on your victimhood. You have a reason for your failures or your unhappiness. It is because of what was done to you. The victim identity becomes difficult to release, not just because of the hurt, but because it has become useful in various ways. This is the trap. Resentment has become identity. And identity is very difficult to change because it is reinforced at every level. In how you see yourself, in how you see others, in how you tell the story, and in how the world responds to you. Chapter 3. The Physiology of Chronic Anger. To understand why holding on to anger is only hurting you, it is essential to understand what chronic anger does to your body. The stress response and inflammation. When you hold on to resentment, you are maintaining an activated stress response. Your nervous system is in a state of threat. Even if nothing is currently happening, your body is responding as though you are in danger. Your stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, are chronically elevated. Your inflammatory markers are elevated. This chronic inflammation is not benign. It has been linked to virtually every chronic disease: heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune disease, cancer. You are literally harming your physical health by maintaining the anger. The person who wronged you is not getting sick from your resentment. You are getting sick from your resentment. Their body is fine. Your body is breaking down. The impact on your brain. Chronic stress and anger actually change your brain structure. The amygdala, your threat detection system, becomes enlarged and hyperactive. The prefrontal cortex, your reasoning and perspective-taking center, becomes diminished. You literally lose the ability to think clearly and rationally. Your brain becomes organized around threat and anger. The person who wronged you is not suffering from these brain changes. You are. They have moved on. You are stuck in a brain that is organized around the wrong they did to you. The impact on your immune system. Your immune system is suppressed when you are in chronic stress and anger. This makes you more susceptible to colds, flu, and infections. You are more likely to develop autoimmune conditions. Your ability to fight off disease is compromised. Again, the person who wronged you is not immunocompromised. You are. You are the one who is suffering the physical consequences of holding the anger. The impact on your sleep, digestion, and overall health. Chronic anger also disrupts sleep. It disrupts digestion. It raises blood pressure. It accelerates aging. All of the systems of your body are affected by the chronic stress of holding onto resentment. The person who wronged you is sleeping fine. Their digestion is fine. They are aging at a normal rate. You are the one whose health is being compromised by your anger. This is not poetic justice. This is just sad. You are harming yourself in order to harm someone who is not being harmed. Chapter 4. The hidden costs you're not seeing. Beyond the physical health costs, holding on to anger has psychological, relational, and existential costs. And many of these costs are invisible unless you look at them directly. The narrowing of perspective. When you are consumed by resentment, your perspective narrows. You can only see through the lens of the wrong that was done. You cannot see the complexity of the other person. You cannot see your own part in the situation. You cannot see the bigger picture of your life. Everything becomes about that one thing that happened, that one person who wronged you. This narrowing means you miss opportunities. You miss moments of joy because you are too busy being angry. You miss meaningful connections because you are too busy being resentful. You miss your own life because you are stuck in the past. The closure of your heart. Resentment is not compatible with open-heartedness. When you are holding resentment, you are keeping your heart closed. You are protecting yourself against being hurt again. But in protecting yourself against hurt, you have also closed yourself against love, connection, and compassion. This closed heart affects all of your relationships. You approach people with suspicion. You expect to be wronged. You do not trust fully. You keep people at a distance. And because you approach them this way, you often create the very rejection and abandonment you are afraid of. Your resentment is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The prevention of intimacy. Related to the closure of the heart is the prevention of intimacy. Intimacy requires vulnerability. It requires opening your heart. But if you are holding resentment, you cannot be fully vulnerable. You cannot fully open. And without full vulnerability and openness, intimacy is impossible. So you end up in relationships where you are never fully known, never fully seen, never fully safe. And you tell yourself that this is because people cannot be trusted, not realizing that you are the one who cannot trust, because you are holding on to resentment. The distortion of memory. Resentment literally distorts your memory of events. Your brain, in an effort to justify the resentment, selectively highlights the negative parts of the memory and downplays or forgets the positive parts. Over time, you have a completely different memory of events than what actually happened. You remember the betrayal but forget the years of good relationship that preceded it. You remember the hurtful words but forget the context or the reasons they were said. You remember being wronged but forget the times you were treated well. Your memory becomes distorted to support the narrative of victimhood. The loss of agency. Perhaps the deepest cost is the loss of agency. When you are holding resentment, you have given your power to the person who wronged you. You are no longer in charge of your own life. They are. They did something to you, and you are still responding to what they did. Years later, you are still organized around their wrong action. You are not free. You are bound to them by the resentment. You are still engaged with them, still fighting with them, still trying to get them to understand what they did, still trying to get justice, still trying to make it right. You are tethered to them through your anger. The only way to regain your agency is to release the resentment and take your power back. Chapter 5. Why your anger feels so justified. If holding on to anger is so costly, why do people do it? Why is it so difficult to let go? The answer is that your anger feels justified. And not just feels, it is justified. What was done to you was wrong. You were wronged. Your anger is legitimate. The truth about justification. Here is the crucial distinction that many people miss. Something can be justified and still not worth holding on to. Your anger is justified. That does not mean you should hold on to it. Those are two different things. If someone broke your leg, your pain is justified. But if your leg has healed and you are still taking strong painkillers and limiting your movement as though the leg is broken, you are not helping yourself by justifying the painkiller use based on the original injury. Similarly, your anger is justified, but holding on to the anger long after the event is not justified. It is not serving you anymore. It never does. At the time of the original hurt, the anger served a function. But after the wound has had time to heal, the anger becomes something you are choosing to hold on to rather than something that is necessary. The fairness narrative. Another reason your anger feels justified is because of the fairness narrative you have constructed. It feels like justice, like balance, like the universe owes you recompense. You were wronged, so fairness dictates that the other person should suffer, or apologize, or acknowledge what they did. Until that happens, your resentment feels justified. But here is the problem. The other person may never acknowledge what they did. They may never apologize. They may never suffer the way you believe they should. And if your freedom is dependent on them doing something they are never going to do, then you are consigning yourself to permanent imprisonment. Justice is often not forthcoming. Fairness is often not achieved. And no amount of resentment will change that. The resentment is not getting you the justice you want. It is only getting you more suffering. The victim narrative and its power. There is also a strange power in the victim narrative. Being a victim means you are not responsible. You did not cause the problem. Someone else did. This is sometimes true, and in those cases, there is freedom in acknowledging it. But sometimes people hold on to victim identity long after they could have moved beyond it, because the victim identity is less demanding than the identity of the person who is rebuilding their life. The victim does not have to take responsibility for the future. They can blame the person who wronged them for everything. They can demand sympathy and support. They can tell a story about how they were done to. There is a strange comfort in that, even though the cost is immense. But there is greater freedom in moving beyond victim identity and reclaiming responsibility for your own life. Because responsibility means you have agency. You can change. You can move forward. You are not stuck. The fear beneath the anger. Finally, your anger feels justified because beneath the anger is fear. You are afraid of what might happen if you let the anger go. You are afraid of the grief beneath it. You are afraid of forgetting, of the wrong being lost, of the other person getting away with it. You are afraid of being hurt again. Your anger feels like protection against all these fears. And it is true that the anger is protecting you in some sense. It is protecting you against feeling the grief, against experiencing the vulnerability, against facing the fear. But it is protecting you the way a prison protects you, by keeping you locked up. Understanding why the anger feels justified is important. But understanding why something feels justified is not the same as it being right to hold on to it. Chapter 6. Betrayal, the deepest source of anger. While anger can be triggered by many different things, the deepest, most persistent anger usually comes from betrayal. And betrayal is worth examining separately because it creates a particular kind of resentment that is especially difficult to release. What betrayal does. Betrayal is not just someone wronging you. It is someone you trusted wronging you. It is the violation of a relationship that you believed was safe. It is the shattering of trust. When you are betrayed, it is not just the action that hurts. It is what the action means. It means you were not important enough to be treated well. It means they did not care about you enough to protect your interests. It means you cannot trust anyone. It means you should have seen this coming, but you did not, which means something is wrong with you. Betrayal creates a particular kind of resentment because it is not just about the action. It is about the meaning of the action. And that meaning extends to your entire worldview and your view of yourself. Betrayal and identity. Betrayal more than any other type of wrong is likely to become identity. Once you have been betrayed, you become the person who was betrayed. You become the person who cannot trust. You become the person who is vulnerable to deception. And you become very careful not to be betrayed again. This carefulness makes sense as a protective response to the original betrayal. But if it persists long after the betrayal, it becomes a cage. You end up being so careful not to be betrayed that you never fully open yourself to anyone. You never fully trust. You never fully love. The special resentment of betrayal. There is a particular bitterness that comes with betrayal resentment. It is not just that the person wronged you. It is that they wronged you from within a trusted relationship. It is that they had the opportunity to be good and they chose not to be. It is that they let you down in a way that feels more profound than if a stranger had hurt you. This bitterness can become all-consuming. It can poison all of your other relationships because you cannot help but wonder, what if they are also capable of betrayal? What if I cannot trust them either? The resentment from one betrayal spreads like an infection to all of your relationships. The paradox of betrayal resentment. Here is the paradox. The more you resent the person who betrayed you, the more power you are giving them over your life. The betrayal already happened. Resenting them for it does not change the fact that it happened. It only ensures that the betrayal continues to hurt you. The person who betrayed you has either moved on or they have their own suffering to deal with. Either way, they are not being harmed by your resentment. You are being harmed by it. You are the one living in the aftermath. You are the one whose life is being limited by the resentment. You are the one whose heart is closed because of what they did. Releasing the resentment from betrayal does not mean that the betrayal was okay. It does not mean that you condone what they did. It means you stop letting them hurt you. It means you take your power back. Chapter 7. Victim Identity and the Power It Seems to Give. One of the most difficult obstacles to releasing resentment is victim identity. And victim identity is powerful precisely because it does offer certain kinds of power, power that is often invisible unless you look at it directly. The power of the victim role. The victim role has several forms of power. First, victims are not responsible. Something was done to them. They did not cause their own problems. This is sometimes literally true, but people often extend this excuse far beyond the original victimization. Second, victims deserve sympathy and support. People feel obligated to help them. People give them special consideration. Victims get to take up space in conversations. Victims get to make demands. This is sometimes appropriate, but it can become a way of getting needs met that would otherwise require asking directly. Third, victims have a narrative that makes sense of their suffering. Their life may be a mess, but there is an explanation. It is because of what was done to them. This explanation is less demanding than taking responsibility for one's own life. Fourth, victims have someone to blame. They do not have to examine their own behavior or choices. The other person is the villain. The victim is righteous. There is a moral clarity that is comforting, even if it comes at the cost of freedom. The shadow side of victim identity. But victim identity also has profound costs. It keeps you stuck in the past. It prevents you from growing. It prevents you from taking responsibility for your own life. It prevents you from moving forward. Moreover, victim identity is often not as powerful as it appears. The sympathy and support people offer to victims is limited. People eventually want victims to get over it, to move on, to stop talking about it. Victim identity can actually result in isolation, because people do not want to be around chronic victimhood. And the moral clarity that victim identity provides is often false. The situation is probably more complex than the simple narrative of victim and villain. You probably contributed something to the situation. You probably made choices that led to being in a position to be hurt. Holding yourself as pure victim prevents you from seeing this complexity. The transition from victim to survivor. There is an important transition from victim identity to survivor identity. A victim is someone to whom something happened. A survivor is someone who went through something difficult and came out the other side. The survivor has agency. The survivor has agency. The survivor is not defined by what happened to them. This transition is one of the most important transitions you can make. It is the transition from resentment to freedom. It is the transition from being imprisoned by what happened to you to using what happened as one chapter of your story. Making this transition requires letting go of the victim identity. It requires acknowledging what happened to you, honoring the hurt, but also seeing yourself as someone who is capable of moving beyond it. Chapter 8. Why revenge never delivers what you want. One reason people hold on to resentment is that it feels like holding on to revenge. As long as you are resentful, you are still engaged in the conflict. But revenge, whether fantasy or actual, never delivers what you want. The revenge fantasy. Most people who hold resentment engage in revenge fantasy. You imagine confronting the person who wronged you. You imagine telling them exactly what you think of them. You imagine them finally understanding what they did, finally feeling sorry, finally acknowledging the harm they caused. In the fantasy, they cry. They apologize profusely. They beg for your forgiveness. They are devastated by what they have done. And in that moment, you feel satisfied. Justice has been done. But here is the truth. That fantasy is never going to happen. The person who wronged you is not going to have the realization you want them to have. They are not going to understand the depth of the harm they caused. They are not going to feel the sorrow you want them to feel. Because most people are not capable of that kind of accountability. And even if, by some miracle, they did have that realization and did apologize and did feel devastated, the relief you would feel would be temporary. The apology would feel incomplete. It would not undo the harm. It would not make you whole. Because no apology from outside can do that work. When revenge is acted out. Sometimes people do not just fantasize about revenge. They act on it. They harm the person who wronged them. They destroy the person's reputation. They expose their secrets. They ruin their relationships. And what happens when this revenge is acted out? Sometimes the other person is harmed. Sometimes justice feels like it has been served. But the person who took the revenge is not healed. The resentment is not gone. If anything, it is worse, because now the person has taken an action they have to live with. Acting on revenge usually creates a cycle. You harm them. They harm you back. The cycle continues. And you are both trapped in it. Meanwhile, your life is consumed by the conflict. The emptiness of revenge. The deepest truth about revenge is this. Getting revenge does not fix what is broken in you. It does not heal the hurt. It does not restore your trust. It does not give you back what was taken. If someone betrayed your trust and you seek revenge, the revenge might make them suffer. But it will not restore your ability to trust. If someone treated you disrespectfully and you seek revenge, the revenge might humble them. But it will not restore your sense of worth. If someone harmed you and you seek revenge, the revenge might cause them pain. But it will not take away your pain. This is the hard truth about revenge. It is not a solution. It is a distraction. It keeps you focused on the other person instead of on healing yourself. It keeps you engaged in the conflict instead of moving on with your life. The only real solution is to focus on your own healing, your own recovery, your own moving forward. And that requires releasing the resentment and letting go of the fantasy of revenge. Chapter 9. The difference between justice and punishment. One of the reasons people hold on to resentment is because they feel like justice has not been served. Someone wronged them and got away with it. But it is important to distinguish between justice and punishment, between accountability and revenge. Justice versus punishment. Justice is about accountability and making things right. It is about the person who wronged you understanding what they did and taking responsibility for it. It is about restitution if possible. It is about preventing future harm. Punishment is about causing suffering to the person who wronged you. It is about making them experience pain equivalent to the pain they caused. It is about revenge disguised as justice. The two are often confused, especially when justice has not been formally served by legal systems or other institutions. When that happens, people often substitute punishment in their own minds as a replacement for justice. But punishment is not justice. It is not solving the problem. It is only perpetuating suffering. The problem with waiting for justice. Many people hold on to resentment because they are waiting for justice. They are waiting for the person to be punished. They are waiting for formal acknowledgement that what was done was wrong. They are waiting for something external to validate their experience and their anger. But justice often does not come. The person who wronged you may face no consequences. They may never be held accountable. They may live their life without experiencing consequences for what they did. If you are holding your own healing hostage, waiting for justice that may never come, then you are consigning yourself to permanent suffering. You are giving the other person permanent power over your life. Justice and healing are separate. Here is the crucial realization. Justice and healing are separate. Justice might never come, but healing can come regardless. You can be healed even if the person who wronged you never apologizes, never faces consequences, never is held accountable. Your healing is not dependent on justice. Your healing is only dependent on what you do to address the hurt and move forward. This is a hard realization because it feels unfair. It feels like if justice is not served, then you have the right to hold resentment. And you do have the right. But the question is not whether you have the right to hold resentment. The question is whether holding resentment is serving you. And it is not. You can acknowledge that what was done was unfair. You can acknowledge that justice should have been served and was not. And you can still choose to release the resentment and move forward with your life. Chapter 10. What forgiveness actually is and isn't. Perhaps no concept is more misunderstood than forgiveness. Many people think forgiveness means condoning what was done. Many people think forgiveness means pretending you were not hurt. Many people resist forgiveness because they believe it means letting the other person off the hook. All of these understandings are false. And because they are false, people often resist forgiveness, and continue to hold resentment, based on a misunderstanding of what forgiveness actually is. What forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not condoning. It does not mean what the person did was okay. It means you acknowledge that what they did was wrong and you are choosing to release your resentment about it anyway. Forgiveness is not forgetting. You can remember what happened and still forgive. In fact, forgiveness that is based on forgetting is often not real forgiveness. True forgiveness is remembering what happened and choosing to release the resentment anyway. Forgiveness is not reconciliation. You can forgive someone without wanting to be in relationship with them again. You can forgive someone even if they have not apologized. You can forgive someone and still maintain healthy boundaries that keep you away from them. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It is not something you do for them. It is something you do for yourself. What forgiveness actually is. Forgiveness is the release of resentment. It is the decision to stop holding the anger, the bitterness, the hurt. It is saying, what you did was wrong. I was hurt, but I am choosing to release the resentment so I can move forward with my life. Forgiveness is not a feeling. It is a choice. You do not have to feel like forgiving in order to forgive. You choose to forgive as an act of will, as a commitment to your own freedom. The feelings follow. Forgiveness is not a one-time event. It is often a practice. You forgive and then you find the resentment creeping back in. You release it again. You forgive again. Over time, the resentment becomes less and less, until finally it is gone. Forgiveness is fundamentally selfish, in the best way. It is about your own freedom. It is about taking your power back. It is about choosing your own healing. Why forgiveness is difficult? If forgiveness is so clearly in your own best interest, why is it so difficult? Because forgiveness requires you to face the hurt beneath the anger. It requires you to grieve what was lost. It requires you to acknowledge that you are still broken and hurting, not just angry. Forgiveness also requires you to release your story. Your story of what happened, your story of who the person is, your story of who you are as the person who was wronged. Letting go of this story feels dangerous. Who will you be if you are not the person who was wronged? And forgiveness requires you to take responsibility for moving forward. You cannot blame the person anymore. You have to take control of your own healing. All of this is difficult, but it is the only path to freedom. Chapter 11. The practice of letting go. Understanding that resentment is hurting you, understanding that forgiveness is in your best interest, these understandings are necessary. But they are not sufficient. You also need practical methods for actually letting go of the resentment. The acknowledgement. The first step in letting go is simple acknowledgement. You acknowledge what happened. You do not minimize it. You do not make excuses for it. You simply acknowledge. This is what happened. This is how it hurt me. This is how I have been angry about it. Often, people skip this step and try to jump straight to forgiveness. But you cannot forgive what you have not fully acknowledged. The acknowledgement is crucial. The grieving. Beneath most resentment is grief. You have lost something. You have lost the relationship as it was. You have lost your trust. You have lost your innocence. You have lost the future you expected. All of this is a loss. Resentment is often a way of avoiding the grief. It is easier to be angry than to be sad. But the anger does not heal the grief. It only covers it up. To let go of the resentment, you must grieve. Grieving means feeling the sadness. It means crying if you need to. It means allowing yourself to feel the loss fully. This is painful, but it is necessary. You cannot move beyond what you have not grieved. The compassion practice. One powerful practice for letting go is to extend compassion to the person who wronged you. Not compassion that means what they did was okay, but compassion that sees them as a human being who was probably suffering, who probably did the best they could with the awareness they had. This is very difficult when the harm was severe. But it is possible. Almost everyone who wrongs others is themselves wounded. They are acting from pain. This does not excuse what they did, but it contextualizes it. You can feel compassion for the wounded person while still acknowledging that what they did was wrong. The release ritual. Some people find it helpful to perform a ritual that symbolically represents the release of resentment. You might write a letter to the person expressing all of your resentment and anger, and then burn it. You might go to a place that is meaningful to you and consciously release your resentment. You might create some other ritual that feels true to you. The ritual itself is not magic. It is not the act of burning the letter that releases the resentment. But the ritual is a way of giving symbolic expression to the internal work you are doing. It is a way of saying, I am choosing to let this go. The ongoing practice. Finally, letting go is not usually a one-time event. It is an ongoing practice. You let go and then you find the resentment returning. You practice mindfulness when the resentment arises. You choose again to let it go. You extend compassion again. Over time, the resentment returns less often and with less intensity, until finally it is gone. Chapter 12. Reclaiming your life from anger. As you begin to let go of resentment, something interesting happens. You realize that a significant portion of your life has been organized around anger. And as the anger dissipates, you are left with the question, who am I without this anger? What do I do now? The life that resentment has cost you. Take a moment to consider what your resentment has cost you. What relationships have been damaged? What opportunities have you not pursued? What dreams have you deferred? What part of yourself have you been unable to access? What joy have you missed? For many people, the list is extensive. Years have been spent in resentment. Potential has been lost. Relationships have been damaged. Life has been lived in a smaller, more constricted way than it could have been. The reclamation. As you release the resentment, you have the opportunity to reclaim your life. This is not about going back to who you were before the harm. That is not possible, but it is about moving forward as someone who has been through the harm and come out the other side. One part of reclamation is examining the beliefs and patterns that resentment established. You have beliefs about people, about trust, about what you deserve. Some of these beliefs may have been accurate responses to what happened. But some may be overgeneralizations that are now limiting your life. You have patterns of relating to others based on your resentment. You approach people with suspicion. You keep people at a distance. You do not fully open your heart. As you let go of the resentment, you have the opportunity to change these patterns. Reclaiming trust. One of the most important parts of reclamation is learning to trust again. This is not about trusting the person who wronged you. It is about being able to trust that people are generally good, that you can be vulnerable, that you can open your heart. This is a gradual process. You do not wake up one day and suddenly trust everyone. But as the resentment fades, you can begin to open yourself to the possibility of trust. You can begin to see that not everyone is going to betray you. You can begin to build new relationships based on actual experience rather than on fear from the past. Reclaiming your body. As the resentment fades, you reclaim your body. Your stress hormones decrease. Your inflammation decreases. Your immune system becomes stronger. Your sleep improves. Your digestion improves. You feel better physically because you are no longer in chronic stress mode. This is not a small thing. Your physical health improves. Your energy improves. Your overall sense of well-being improves. Reclaiming your time and attention. You reclaim your time and attention. You are no longer spending mental energy ruminating about what happened. You are no longer spending emotional energy maintaining your resentment. You have all of this time and attention available for things that matter. You can focus on the relationships that are in front of you. You can pursue work that is meaningful. You can engage in hobbies and activities that bring you joy. You can be present in your life instead of being stuck in the past. Chapter 13. When others won't apologize. One of the most difficult situations is when you want to forgive and let go, but the other person has never apologized, has never acknowledged the harm, or has actively denied wrongdoing. The expectation of apology. Most people approach forgiveness conditionally. They think, if the person apologizes, then I will forgive them. But if they never apologize, I am not obligated to forgive. This is understandable. An apology acknowledges the wrong. It validates your experience. It feels like justice. But here is the problem. You do not control whether the person apologizes. Many people never apologize. Some never even acknowledge what they did. If you make your forgiveness conditional on their apology, you are putting your freedom in their hands. They get to decide when you are free. That is a terrible arrangement. Forgiveness independent of apology. The path to freedom is to forgive independent of apology. To say, whether or not they ever acknowledge what they did, I am choosing to release my resentment. I am choosing to free myself. This is radically difficult. It feels unfair. It feels like you are letting them off the hook. But you are not. You are letting yourself off the hook. You are taking your power back. The validation you need to provide. When the other person will not validate your experience, you must validate it for yourself. You know what happened. You know it was wrong. You know you were hurt. You do not need their acknowledgement to make this true. You might write yourself a letter validating what happened and how it affected you. You might speak it aloud to someone you trust. You might engage in some other practice that validates your experience. But you cannot wait for the other person to do this for you. Protecting yourself while forgiving. Forgiving does not mean you have to trust the person again. It does not mean you have to let them back into your life. It means you release the resentment while still maintaining whatever boundaries are necessary to protect yourself. You can forgive someone and still choose not to be in relationship with them. You can forgive someone and still warn others about them. You can forgive someone and still take action to ensure they do not hurt you again. Forgiveness is not about trust. It is about freedom. Chapter 14. Building a life beyond resentment. As you release resentment and reclaim your life, you have the opportunity to actively build something new. What does a life look like when it is not organized around anger? The life organized around values. Instead of a life organized around resentment, you can build a life organized around your actual values. What matters to you? What brings you joy? What do you want to contribute? What kind of relationships do you want to have? When resentment is no longer consuming your energy, you have the capacity to ask these questions and pursue the answers. You can build a life that is truly yours, based on what you care about, not based on anger at what was done to you. The relationships you build. With your heart open instead of closed, you can build deeper, more authentic relationships. You can be vulnerable. You can trust. You can love. You can allow people to know you. These relationships will be different from those built on fear and suspicion. They will be marked by genuine connection, genuine understanding, genuine care. The resilience you develop. You develop a different kind of resilience when you release resentment. It is not the resilience of the hardened warrior who has learned not to trust. It is the resilience of someone who has been hurt, has grieved, has chosen to move forward, and has come out stronger. You understand now that you are capable of surviving harm. You are capable of healing. You are capable of forgiving. This knowledge makes you resilient in a true sense. You are not afraid of being hurt because you know you can survive it. The peace you experience. Most profoundly, you experience peace. Not the peace of numbness or denial, but the peace of having worked through something difficult and come out the other side. The peace of having released the burden you have been carrying. The peace of being free. This peace is not always constant. Sometimes old hurt comes up. Sometimes you remember what happened and feel the sting. But these moments pass, and underneath them is a baseline of peace that was not there before. Epilogue. Freedom on the other side. As we reach the end of this book, let us return to where we began, the recognition that the anger you are holding onto is only hurting you. You have now spent significant time with this idea. You have understood why it is true. You have begun to understand what becomes possible when you release it. The truth is this: the person who wronged you may not care. They may never know that you have forgiven them. They may never understand what they did or take responsibility for it. And none of that matters. Your forgiveness is not for them. It is for you. Releasing resentment is not weakness. It is the greatest strength. It takes far more courage to face the hurt beneath the anger and to grieve and to forgive than it does to hold on to anger. The person who can do that, who can face their own pain and still choose compassion and forgiveness, that is a person of true strength. Your anger was justified. What was done to you was wrong. Those facts do not change. But what you do with those facts is up to you. You can hold on to the anger and let it poison the rest of your life. Or you can release it and reclaim your freedom. On the other side of resentment is freedom. Freedom to love. Freedom to trust. Freedom to be fully alive. Freedom to build a life that is not limited by what was done to you. Freedom to be yourself instead of being defined by your victimhood. That freedom is waiting for you. Not because what happened was okay. Not because the other person deserves forgiveness. But because you deserve to be free. The journey from resentment to freedom is not easy. It requires courage. It requires honesty. It requires willingness to face pain. But on the other side is a life worth living. You have the power to choose freedom. You have always had that power. Now you know what to do with it.